Hello and welcome to the year-end student webinar. This is just a friendly reminder. We have you on mute and we're going to keep you on mute for the presentation, and this will be recorded. So you can either leave your camera on or you can leave your camera off. We do like to see faces of our students, so you are welcome to keep your camera on. We will have a question and answer time at the end. So feel free to chat your questions to either me or one of the other counselors, and then we will write or answer your questions at the end. So we are going to get started. And this is a presentation with all your counselors today. However, some of us aren't here today, but Mrs. Crisp is the 3rd and 4th grade counselor. She can't make it today, but Miss Doherty is here and she is the 3rd and 5th grade counselor. Mrs. Wilson is our counseling assistant and she is here. And I am Mrs. Blackburn and I am the 6th and 7th grade counselor. And Mrs. Schneider is our 8th grade counselor and she actually started her leave today, so she won't be joining us. And Miss Benedict, our director of counseling, is here today joining us as well. And for those 8th graders that have Mrs. Schneider, Mrs. Wilson will be covering for Mrs. Schneider, so you will be hearing from her over the next few months. So today we are going to talk about how to submit quiz and test corrections, what the end of the school year grading looks like, summer school extensions, what moving up to the next grade level looks like, and things to do this summer, resources, and friendship skills. So Mrs. Wilson is going to start us off.
Awesome. Thanks, Mrs. Blackburn. So like Mrs. Blackburn said, we are going to talk about submitting corrections. So let's start by talking about quiz corrections. So you've probably learned by now at this point in the school year, you have 2 attempts on your quizzes. So on a quiz that you've taken 2 times, if after the second time you've scored below a 70% on that second attempt, you'll have the option to potentially submit corrections that would allow you to gain partial points back. So when you're submitting your corrections, how it will work is that you would submit an explanation that your teacher would review, and then they may award half credit per correction and explanation. And this can be done to bring your score up to a 70%, but not higher than that. So you do have the option, if that's something that's interesting to you, to bring your score up to 70% on a quiz. And we know that quizzes can heavily affect your grade in a course overall. So if your grade is kind of on the line right now and you want to bring it up to avoid having to retake a course, then this would be a good option for you. And then there is a link that's in this presentation that's going to be sent out after we are done today with more details on quiz corrections. And that link is really great because it breaks it down per course. And so there's a specific route that you would take to submit corrections for a math quiz versus an English quiz. And so that link outlines all of the details. It's written by one of our teachers. So definitely take advantage of that option and review that link once the presentation is sent out. And then tests are going to be a little bit different. You only have 1 chance to take each test. However, after a test, there may be an alternate test available. So you can reach out to your teacher to see if there is an alternate test available, and you can request to take that test by sending your teacher a message in Ignitia. If your teacher allows you to take an alternate test, they might first ask you to submit corrections on the initial test that you submitted to make sure that you understand the content prior to taking the alternate test. So your teacher can walk through this process with you, but we just want you to know that these are really great options for students who may want to improve their scores in their courses. And please do note that if you are a traditional end student, meaning that your courses are currently scheduled to end on June 6th, you will not be able to submit any project revisions or test corrections after May 23rd. So that is coming up really quickly. So if this is something that's interesting to you, definitely take advantage of doing so now and don't wait on it. So that's a little bit about submitting corrections. Now let's talk about end of the school year grading. So we are getting to that point in the school year where you might be behind in your courses and begin to wonder what's going to happen if I don't complete this course by the end of the school year. So there's a couple different ways that that could go. If you have a course and the school year ends and 75% or more of the course is completed, then any remaining unfinished assignments in that course are going to be zeroed out, which basically just means we're going to put zeros in the grade book for any assignments that you haven't finished. And as you can imagine, that is going to impact your score and bring your score down if there are a lot of zeros that are entered. However, if you have less than 75% of your course completed, so if less than 3/4 of your course is completed in the school year ends, you're just going to be given an incomplete for the course. And then failed or incomplete courses might need to be retaken the following school year. So your counselor is going to take a look at how you did, and if they see that you failed a course or a course was left incomplete, they may have you retake it just to make sure that you're gaining that knowledge. And once again, the last day of corrections is May 23rd, so it is coming up. And now let's talk about summer school extensions. So if you kind of fall into one of those categories that we discussed on the last slide, if you're concerned that you're not going to complete a course and you want to avoid having a failed grade or an incomplete grade, you can request a summer school extension. What an extension does is it just changes the end date of your courses to the end of July, so July 29th, instead of the current end date for traditional end students, which is June 6th. So it gives you more time to complete your assignments. It doesn't lessen the amount of assignments that you have left. The amount of assignments stays the same, but it basically redistributes your due dates to give you more time to complete the courses. So let's say you want an extension, but you don't need until July 29th. You can always work ahead and finish sooner than that, but a summer school extension is just going to be a great option if you are needing a little bit more time to finish your courses and spread things out. So if you're interested in this option, I would recommend having your parent reach out to your counselor, and your counselor can provide you with the request form to fill out, and that will notify your counselor that you would like your courses rescheduled for the summer school extension. Please keep in mind there is a fee for summer school extension. Our billing department would be happy to talk with you about what that looks like depending on your package. So their contact information is included in this slide if that would be something that you're interested in. And I'm going to pass it off to Ms. Benedict, who will talk about moving on to the next grade level.
Great, thank you. All right, I am Miss Benedict, and I am one of the high school counselors as well as the head of the Department of School Counseling. And I am here today to talk a little bit to some of you eighth graders who are going to be moving up to high school. So this actually applies to all of you and is not specific to eighth graders yet, but counselors are going to be reaching out soon with your schedules or questions about your schedules. If you're in elementary or middle school, it's a lot more likely that you'll hear from us if we have a question. So there might be something that one of your parents or guardians put on the form that we just need to ask about and just kind of check in about. So just remind them to keep an eye on it. If they've registered you for next year, if they have not re-enrolled you for next year, you're not going to be hearing from us. So if the sooner they can re-enroll you, the better, because then we can start working with you and getting that all planned out. So if you haven't re-enrolled yet, now's the time. So now I'm going to be speaking specifically to those eighth graders who are moving on to ninth grade. I wanted to talk a little bit about what is the same and what is different between eighth and ninth grade, because I know that's a question that comes up a lot, and it's a little bit different when you're online versus in person, so it can be a little confusing. So what's the same for moving, eighth to ninth grade? You're on the same platform, unless y'all are doing anything on Canvas, in which case you will be on Ignitia, but I think that only applies to some of you sixth graders. And then some of you in high school might also have a class on Canvas. But for the most part, you'll all be on Ignitia. You'll have many of the same types of core classes. So you're still going to have English, you're still going to have Bible, math, science, all of that. So a lot of the classes that you've gotten familiar with, you're going to be in those kinds of classes as well. The calendar is the same as it is for elementary and middle school. So, you'll have the same holidays, you'll have the same quarter, semester ends, all of that. So if you see, like maybe you have a younger sibling and that they have a week off for spring break, you're going to have that same time off. So just keep that in mind. And then obviously your teachers still want you to be successful. Your teachers and counselors, we're here to help you. We still want you to do well. We still want you to reach out if you have any questions. Just because you're going on to high school doesn't mean that, you don't have, you can just stop reaching out. You can still ask questions, still get help. We're still here to help you. What's different, you'll probably have more options about classes. Now, ninth graders don't usually have a ton of class options just because there's a lot of core credits you have to start working on, but you do generally still have 1 or 2 elective options, which I'll show you on the next slide when we get there. But you get a little bit more choice because there's just more that you have to complete and there's a little bit more flexibility with your schedule. The workload gets a little more challenging. So the work itself, obviously every time you go up a grade level, the work gets a little harder. High school is no different. It's going to be a little bit harder. Get really good at checking for projects at the start of a unit, because if you can check for a project and start planning for that, you have a lot more time to just get it done. And that tends to be something that holds high school kids back a little bit. Big difference is that your classes count towards high school credits, which will be on your transcript. So up until now, when you've taken classes in elementary school or middle school, you get report cards every year, right? You'll still get report cards as a high schooler, but you'll also get something called a transcript. What the transcript shows is credits you've earned in high school. So essentially, every class in high school is worth a certain amount of credits, and then you need a certain amount of certain kinds of credits to graduate. So it gets a little different because in elementary and middle school, it's like we want to pass all your classes and then you can move on to the next grade level. In high school, it is a little bit like that, but it's also like you have to take certain kinds of classes to meet requirements so that you get your diploma and then you can be done with high school. Your course plans will cover more information about that, but just kind of keep that in mind. We talk with incoming ninth graders about that a lot too at the start of the year. You'll also have a couple extras that you don't have this year, and that is going to be volunteer work and CCR, and that's college and career readiness. So volunteer work is that every year a student is with us, we have them do 10 hours of volunteer work. A lot of kids choose to do it over the summer, which is great, but we just want you out in the community, showing God's love and grace to other people and just doing his work. And then CCR, we do our college and career readiness on a platform called Zello, which you'll likely get an invite to over the summer. And essentially what that is that just really has you start thinking about like what you want to do when you graduate. So you'll take personality assessments, you'll take job assessments, kind of figure out where you might want to go once you're finished with high school. And then obviously you'll be guided through that as well. And now I have a sample plan for incoming ninth graders. I just took a screenshot of the first 2 years because they're pretty long, so I didn't want to overwhelm you, but you will see something like this once you've registered. Your counselor will start reaching out to you between now and basically the end of summer just to like send you this plan and get your feedback. What I really wanted to draw attention to was under ninth grade where it says pick a fine arts elective, you'll probably have a similar box, a box that says like pick a whatever elective. The way your course plan is broken down is 2 tabs. So you got 1 tab with instructions and 1 tab with the course plan. The first tab is going to have a link to like elective options and all of that. And that's where you're going to find those so you can start thinking about them. And then you can always ask your counselor if you have any questions. So this is what I mean when I say you get a little bit more choice. But as you can see, again, for freshman year, it's a little bit limited, but that's okay. You get more and more the further you go. And now I'm going to go ahead and talk about some resources. So as we get to the end of the year, you still have access to resources. And if you haven't used them yet, I definitely encourage you to just to finish out the year strong. We do have IXL. A lot of you are probably familiar with IXL because you had to do an entrance assessment when you came to the school. But IXL is an online resource that tests where you're at in math and English. You're assigned assignments based on your test results. And the idea there is to help you strengthen your skills in the areas that you might be a little bit weaker in. The assignments don't count towards grades in Ignition, but they do offer really good practice. And this is especially helpful for kids who might want to work on getting ahead, or if you feel like, maybe you struggle with concepts in math or English or something like that. It can be a really good way just to go review those over the summer. So if you're interested in IXL, email ixl@enlightiumacademy.com. And then we also have LiveBinder. And I know a lot of you are familiar with LiveBinder by now, as we talk about it every time. But if you're not, it's a resource compiled by teachers to help students receive more practice and support. There's additional assignments, there's videos and lessons that align with your assignments. You can access previous live sessions, which that's actually a pretty big deal. That does come up a lot, like if you're sick or whatever, you just can't get to the live session. They're uploaded on there, so I would go back and review them if you are stuck on a topic. And these slides will be sent out. So when it says something on here like click here to learn more about LiveBinder, you'll be able to do that when you get the slides. But I definitely recommend clicking there, just kind of investigating it. If you don't use LiveBinder, it is really helpful for all grade levels. And you'll find, especially as you get into high school and start advancing in that you definitely will want to be using those extra resources when you get stuck. So now I'm going to pass it off to Mrs. Wilson just to talk about some things you can do over the summer.
Perfect. Yeah. So summer's coming up and we don't want you to be bored, although I'm sure lots of you have fun summer plans. We do have some ideas for you just in case you want some. So first thing on our list is to participate in our summer reading program. So this is actually an opportunity for you to earn credit for the next school year. So there's a link on this presentation that takes you to our website, and that will give you suggestions for reading, which books that you might want to read. And we will send the slides like Ms. Benedict said. So you can read books and earn points for the opportunity to earn up to 3% extra credit in the first quarter of your English course next year. So if that's something that's interesting to you, if you really enjoy reading, that could be a fun way to boost your grade a little bit for the upcoming year. That form will be due by the first day of school. And again, that extra credit is only going to apply to the first quarter of your English course. Other fun ideas could be to just explore what's out there in your community. So whether that be going to the local library and seeing what books they have to offer, or visiting a museum with your family, those are ways to continue learning over the summer, even when you don't have coursework to complete. So you can kind of play tour guide in your own town, which is really fun, and just see what's out there and what resources are available to you. Maybe you want to grow in your faith this summer. So one way to do that would be to memorize Bible verses. This can also keep your mind sharp using those memorization skills, and of course, growing closer to the Lord by memorizing His Word. You can also share what you learned this school year with your family and friends. I bet a lot of you have family members, maybe it's grandparents or aunts and uncles, who would love to hear from you. If they live close, you can meet up with them and tell them what you've learned this school year, or you can even call them on the phone and share. But that's a really neat way to keep them updated on your life, and also for you to remember all that you learned this year and to give yourself a pat on the back. And then, like Ms. Benedict said, we also do have IXL accounts available to you if that's something you're interested in, and you can continue practicing with your math skills that way. Math is something that's really helpful to just continue learning throughout the year. So instead of having a big gap over the summer where you forget some of those concepts, you can learn those concepts and practice them over the summer. And then we have a list here specifically for eighth graders. So what are some things that you can do over the summer as an eighth grader who's going to be entering into high school soon? Maybe you want to job shadow. So that could look like finding a job of a friend or a family member in your community who does something that you might be interested in doing one day, and you can ask to tag along for the day and see what their job looks like. You could also look at the high school electives like Ms. Benedict showed us. Those are available on our website, so you can click on the link in this presentation and review which fine arts elective you might be interested in taking for your freshman year. And if you are an overachiever, you can even look at the following years as well and come up with a good plan with your counselor that way. You can also research careers. There is a really neat website that's included in this presentation, and that will suggest careers to you that align with your skills and your interests. It'll also tell you the job outlook and even the projected income for a specific type of job. So if you're interested, that's a cool resource for you to check out. You can also interview loved ones about their careers and their educational journeys. So maybe you don't have time to job shadow, but you do have time to have a conversation with a loved one about what it's like being in the workforce. That could be a cool opportunity for you. You could complete volunteer work. That's a great way to get connected to your community. And we also do require volunteer hours in order to graduate from Enlightium. So getting connected with an organization can kind of give you a head start for fulfilling that requirement. And then we also have the list of required books for our ninth grade English course available on our website. So if you want to get a head start on your reading, that certainly couldn't hurt. And that will be a course that is assigned to all ninth graders. So you can pretty much guarantee that you'll need to read those books. So if you want to get a head start on it, that's a great option for you. So those are some ideas for what to do over the summer. And now Miss Doherty is going to share with us about some friendship and relationship skills.
Thank you, Mrs. Wilson. So now we're going to be talking, like Mrs. Wilson said, about friendship and relationship skills. So did you know that we were created to live in families and community and to support and love one another. So, what are some ways that we can be a good sibling, a good friend, and a kind and loving relative? So, today we're going to talk about conversation skills, listening skills, playing fair, being a good winner and loser, explaining emotions and needs, accepting others, conflict resolution, and showing concern for others. So, first, we're going to talk about conversation skills. So, when we're getting to know someone and or if we already know them and we're starting a conversation, it's important to ask them questions. Notice something about them. Do they have a cool shirt on, new shoes? To let them know that you're looking at them and thinking of them. Maintaining the conversation, that means keeping the conversation going. So ask for more details, share something about yourself, but being careful not to interrupt them. Joining a conversation. So maybe you want to join in on a conversation with a group of friends. So it's important to be patient and wait for a break in the conversation to add what you have to say. Using a social filter. So that's a few silly words that just mean think about it before you say it. Is it important? Is it beneficial? Is it kind? If it is, then say it. And if it isn't, maybe you can save it for another time or just not say it at all. And then when we're ending a conversation, it's important to look at the person in the eye and thank them for your time with them, or just let them know that it's time for you to go. Being polite and considerate. So our listening skills. Friends and family want to know that we are listening to them. Focus on what the other person is saying them and showing with our emotions and our body language that we care about what they're saying. So that looks like looking them in the eye. We're not looking around. We're not moving around a lot. We're just sitting and looking at them or standing and looking at them. Letting go of our own thoughts. So we might be preparing or thinking of what we want to say next. We're either really excited or sometimes we're nervous. So try not to plan what you're going to say to answer what they're saying while they're talking. Wait for them to finish talking so that you are making sure that you're listening and being kind. Playing fair. So there are many different ways to play games. You might have a set of rules and your friends have another set of rules. So following the rules is respectful and it's important to try each way. So maybe one day you're going to play with your friends' rules, but at your house you do it differently. And you can say, well, next time let's try my rules. And you can share with them a new way as well. Being a good winner or loser. So when we play a game, whether it's for sports, an outside activity, or maybe we're just playing board games at home, I know it can be really fun to win. But it's okay. We don't win all the time, and it's not always about winning, it's about having fun. So remember, if you don't win that game, even if you really wanted to, it's kind and loving to say, good game. Explaining emotions and needs. Sometimes we get very overwhelmed, or maybe we're upset and we don't know where to start. Maybe our friend or family member thinks we're upset with them, and we're not even upset with them. Maybe we're upset about something else, or our mind is racing and we're thinking about a lot of different things. So it's important to explain to them when we feel calm and ready to say, I feel overwhelmed, or I feel sad. I need help. Those are just different ways that we can explain what we feel and what we need. Accepting others. So God made us unique. He made us all different. We do not have to be alike. We don't have to wear the same clothes or listen to the same music, but we need to love one another for the unique person that they are. And, when we're all different, we can share different types of games we like to play, different types of music, and we can definitely learn from one another by being different. Conflict resolution. So that means when something doesn't go the way that we would like, sometimes we get into an argument or there's hurt feelings, there's some sort of conflict. And it happens, it's normal. So it's important to be assertive, and that just means being respectful while being honest. So communicating how we feel, like we talked about earlier, I feel sad, I feel mad. and explaining to them that maybe you're sorry, maybe you did the thing that was wrong. And if the other friend did the thing that was wrong and they're sorry, it's important that we look them in the eye and we forgive them. So we want to use our active listening skills when they're talking to us, and then we hope to receive that back from them. So we're going to open our ears and look at them in the eye and be respectful. So the last one I want to talk about is showing concern for others. You might have heard of the word empathy. So sometimes we're having a really hard time and we're talking with a friend or a family member, and all we can think about is ourselves, but it's important to have empathy, which means that we are trying to understand, or maybe we understand where the other person is coming from. And it's important to think that maybe sometimes when we feel overwhelmed, one of the things to help us calm down is asking how we can serve others. Just like Jesus serves us and he loves us no matter what, we can show that for others. And through that, we can support one another. So now we are going to open up for any questions that you may have. You can
Yes,
go
so
ahead.
thank you, Miss Doherty. Feel free to chat us your questions and we'll take a few minutes to answer them. So I'll just give you a minute or two to type out your questions. And if no one has any questions, again, this will be sent out probably sometime next week. So you'll be able to view the slideshow yourself. And then if you have questions, you can always reach out to your counselor. All of our contact information you should have by now. You can send us a message in Admisha or Canvas if you're in the platform. And yes, or your parents can email us or you can email us. There's lots of ways to get in contact if you have any questions that come up. Okay, the first question I'm going to have Miss Benedict answer it is, can you take college prep courses in 8th grade?
Oh, college prep courses in 8th grade. That's a great question. We aren't doing that yet. We do want to move towards doing that sometime. We won't be doing that next year though. So the Zello Access is for 9th graders and up right now. However, if you're looking for things to start thinking about college prep as an 8th grader, there are a lot of good resources out there. Trying to pull up the name of the one that I recommend a lot that I can never think of the name of. Give me 1 second here. Okay, so really a big one that you're going to want to start looking into is Big Future. That's a College Board one, and they help you start thinking about like going to college, what that looks like. Really, if you just get onto Google and start looking for things like oh gosh, my words today are not happening. Career personality inventories for 8th graders, that kind of thing. You'll find a lot of that stuff. What I tell the younger kids is it can be a good idea to do kind of any version of like job shadowing that you can get, right? So what that might look like is like, let's say I'm an 8th grader and I am really interested in being a vet. I might see, okay, do we have any family friends who like work at a vet clinic, or even like, do they work at an animal shelter, or can I get volunteer work at an animal shelter? Just start looking for opportunities to kind of get involved close to things you might want to do someday. And the reason I tell, 8th graders this, 9th graders this, lots of kids this information, is because even if you start doing it and then maybe you find out like, oh, I don't like this at all. Like maybe you volunteered at an animal shelter for a month and you're like, I can't do this. Like, I don't like this at all. You now know like, okay, well, maybe veterinary school is not the path for you. Maybe it's a good time to try something else and see if something else fits you a little bit better. So just kind of getting as much information as possible, especially again through like being able to see people's jobs or ask people about their jobs, that kind of thing. That's a great place to start. And that'll kind of guide you to further questions like, okay, do I need to go to college for this job? Because there's a lot of jobs where you don't need to go to college, and there's a lot of jobs where you do need to go to college. So that's starting with what you might be interested in doing can guide you to then kind of do more of that post-secondary searching.
Thank you. We've got lots of questions rolling in. Okay, the next question, are all of the summer activities mandatory or optional? So the summer activities are just recommended and ideas. They are all optional. You are welcome to do whatever you would like to this summer. But for those looking for things to do, those are just some recommendations. And then another one I'm going to ask Miss Doherty. If nobody is showing empathy to you when you're going through a hard time, are they a true friend?
So I would encourage you to use the communication part that we talked about. Sometimes friends don't know how to show empathy. Maybe they're not thinking about it because they've never just done it before. And I would encourage you to talk with them and let them know how you feel. And we talked about saying, I feel, I need. And then after talking with them, if they're not interested or maybe they're saying things that I'm not sure that this friend's unkind, but if they're being unkind, it's okay to have a boundary and take space from them, um, and see what you're comfortable with going from there.
Okay, the next question is, do you do sports like soccer in fifth grade? So, and I think it was also in a different country. The answer is we, for all third through eighth grade, offline, or let me rephrase this. Physical education is required. Most of you will be taking offline PE. So you are required to do 60 hours worth of physical activity, which includes soccer or exercising, working out. You can go for a walk, any physical activity. So you have to do 60 hours, and we actually give you the full year to do it. And it is required each year. And then there is an offline PE teacher that you can ask questions to about specific activities, but dance and swimming and all sorts of activities are included. We just want you guys to be active.
But
So
if
the
you're
next
asking if we have,
Oh.
sorry to add on, if you're asking if we have sports teams, we don't. Because
We
we don't
do
have
not.
enough kids really located close to each other to do sports. So I encourage you to have, probably someone in your family reach out to local homeschool associations and see if they have local teams, because a lot of homeschool associations will have teams that kids can participate in.
Yes. The next question is, what if I don't finish one thing in my schoolwork by May 26th? Will I get an F? So the last day of school is June 6th, and there is a few days of grace period that you guys have to finish up your coursework. So if at the end of the school year, by this, I think it's the 8th, if all remaining unfinished assignments, if you are 75% or more complete, will be given a 0 by your teachers. So if you have a few assignments that you didn't get to finish, they will be given a 0. Let's see. I think. Okay, here's another college question. I'm in 7th grade and I want to know, in college, when you choose your job, what do you think would be the best job? Ms. Benedict?
Well, that is a hard question. It really depends a lot on what your goals are. So that's why it's good to start thinking about, like, what are things you like to do? What are things you're good at? What are things that you feel God is calling you toward? So that could be like, okay, if I start thinking, about like things I like to do, maybe I really like working with kids, or maybe I really like spending time outside. That's a big one that I tell kids to start thinking about. Like, maybe I don't like to sit still and I really like spending time outside. So then you can think like, okay, well, what would be a good job for me? Because being like a CEO that has to sit in an office all the time and never gets to go anywhere or is always staring at a computer, that might seem really good because you're like, well, maybe it pays a lot of money. But is that going to be satisfying to you or be what God is calling you to do if it goes against like all of the things you like to do and your skills and all of that? Probably not. So you really have to start thinking about it from like, what works for you? Like, what are you good at? What has God gifted you with? And then kind of go from there. So now is a good time with summer coming up to just get involved in some activities and see if you like them or not. And maybe that'll start guiding you towards what you might want to do someday.
Okay, we are going to do one more question because we're over time. And if you guys have any other questions, reach out to us. by the ways I told you before. But the last question is there summer school? And how much is it and what courses are offered? So there is summer school. It's mainly a summer school extension. So if you haven't finished your courses by June 6th, we can extend your courses to July 29th. And there is a fee, and that is based on your support package. So have your parents reach out to your counselor and they can explain that process to you. All right. So all other
Can I add something onto your question really
yes,
quick?
yes, please.
Okay. If you are finishing on time and you do want to do a course, like start on courses over the summer, we do also have early start. And there is a fee for that, but it varies depending on your support package. So you'd want to talk with your family and make sure it's all good with them, and they can reach out to your counselor, and that's an option as well.
Yes. All right. Thank you everyone for participating. If you have any questions, please reach out. We hope you have a great summer and we hope to see you next year and have a great rest of your day.